hackathon webinar series. Today you will learn about rural attractiveness and how you can visualize that. My name is Bente Lilja. I'm from Plan for All and I will be your host today. And with me I have a panel of experts and you will learn more about them shortly. But before we really start this program, we will, as usual, do the weather report. Because I want to hear what the weather is like where you are in the chat. And in the chat, you can also ask questions and comment during this webinar. So we can start in the chat by letting everybody knows what the weather is like where you are. And we will do a demo here in the webinar room. Pavel, can you start and give us a short weather report from where you are?
Hi, Bente. Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks for this introduction. I'm in Eastern Europe, in Lithuania at the moment, and the weather is here is gray and cloudy, so not very inspiring, but I hope that today's discussion will change this around and will make things a bit brighter.
Absolutely. We will inspire you through this webinar for sure. Okay, Utakar, where are you and what's the weather like?
Okay, I am in the Pilsen, Czech Republic, and weather, not very good.
Not very good, yes. It's subjective, you know, but so, okay, not very good. We go to you, František. Where are you and what's your report?
Okay, hello everyone. I'm also in Pilsen, but on the other side than Otakar is. And you know, in the morning it's been freezing here. It was like 2 degrees Celsius, but now it's the sun is turning up and seems that it will go better now.
Okay, yeah, so a little bit more optimism on the other side of Pilsen. That's good. Yes, so well, I'm in Norway, just a little bit northwest of Oslo, our capital. And today we have a very nice, sharp autumn weather. We have sunshine and then some fog because of the, you know, the warm soil. But now it's clearing up again. So a beautiful autumn day here in Norway. And thank you so much for, I see that we get some greetings from rainy Finland. Thank you, Mila. Martin, Barcelona. There's the windy and sunny. Tula is experiencing also in Finland, sunny, rainy, cloudy, chilly. Okay, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Okay, thank you so much. Keep them coming in the chat. We want you to ask questions and comment later on when you hear what the presenters, what you are about to learn. I will not go into the detailed program but you will learn first about the concept of rural attractiveness. What is it? Then you will learn something about what type of data goes into that. And finally, we will present some tools, some applications that you can use. So that's the overall program. We have about an hour, maybe a little bit of an hour, I will assume, that this will take. We will have some questions in between for clarifications, but then we also have in the program some very specific engagement and dialogue sections. So you will be engaged throughout this webinar in the middle of it and in the end. I think with that, I give you the floor, and each of the speakers, by the way, will introduce themselves before they are giving their presentation. So that's how you will learn who they are. Okay, I think we are ready to start. And the floor is yours. Yes, we will turn off our cameras and microphone while you are speaking. Yeah.
Okay, so I will start and hopefully people can see my screen.
Yes.
Oh, present. Yeah, so before we actually go into the discussion and the more technical discussion about rural attractiveness, what it is, how to measure and visualize it, I will briefly introduce the challenge and say a few words about the POLIRURAL project. And then after my part, I will hand over to Otakar, who will provide a more in-depth perspective on rural attractiveness from, if you like, a data science perspective. In this challenge, what we try to do is really achieve several things, and one of them is to improve a couple of applications that we've built already as part of the POLIRURAL project. One is, as you can see on your right-hand side, is the Rural Attractiveness Index, and the other is called Rural Attractiveness Clustering Map. And of course, being a bottom-up project, we always are keen to get feedback from the community, and based on this feedback, implement changes that will see these applications improved. We have several groups that are meant to help us with this challenge. Group number one, we called it web development and data visualization. And the main purpose of this group is to suggest data-related improvements to the applications, focusing on pre-processing and various model parameters, and adding some front-end changes to the application, such as pop-up windows that can provide more in-depth information for the 12 pilot regions that I will describe in more detail later. Then we have group number two, which is called Rural Affairs, and people who have joined this group, the main requirement for them was to have an interest in rural affairs and some experience with rural development. And these are the kind of people that will be testing the application and sharing their feedback with group one, who would then need to implement these changes. And we have also the third group. We called it Data Experts. And the idea behind this group is to enrich our understanding of various methods that can help us calculate rural attractiveness. So if you have some experience with cluster maps, cluster methods, please feel free to join this group, and more information on how to join this group will be provided at the end. So this was briefly a few words about the challenge, and now I'm going to say a few things about the POLIRURAL project, because this challenge is organized and managed by Plan for All, who is a member of the POLIRURAL project, a member and a partner of the POLIRURAL project. So if you like, this is kind of a joint initiative. POLIRURAL, as most of you probably know, this is a Horizon project, very ambitious EU 2020 project that spans 37 partner organizations, and 27 of these organizations are involved directly in local and regional activities. So we have 12 pilots spread across south and north, east and west. We have some pilots functioning in Central Europe, and we also have a pilot here in the Galilee region, which is Israel. And when we say pilots, or when I refer to them as pilots, what exactly do I mean? Basically, these pilots are called such because they are testing and experimenting with what we call a strategic foresight framework, and it's composed of 3 steps. Step 1, the idea here is to understand the current rural situation. What's happening in the region? How is the region affected by various drivers, international drivers like climate change, and how these international drivers bear on the local conditions? So this is all part of the first step in the foresight framework, which is understanding it, basically. Then once we have some grasp of the current affairs, we try to envision the future that we want to achieve in each region. And here we rely on scenario methods and system dynamic modeling to picture the future that we would like to achieve in 10, 20, 30 years' time. And once we get that clear picture of where we want to go with our region, we sort of go back to our current practices, and we change existing policies and various other measures to get to that stage in a number of years. So in a nutshell, this is what our 12 pilots are testing. And on this slide, you see the same model, just in in a few more details. So you still have this current rural situation, understanding how pilots are performing at present, and the key word here is text mining. This is one of the innovative tools that we're using in the project, text mining, and we've used it on multiple occasions to gather rural needs. And at the moment, text mining is being applied to a policy evaluation exercise. Then once we get a good understanding of the present, we will move on to the future. And these are the different scenarios that we're going to develop using this so-called model-assisted participatory foresight. And the keywords here is model, because it refers to the system dynamic modeling that I will describe a little bit later, and participatory. And that is important because, as I mentioned before, we want to get feedback from local communities and make sure that they validate everything that we do. And in this case, the models are going to be built by experts, by foresight and system dynamic experts, and they will be validated by local stakeholders. Each pilot has a local stakeholder panel that will validate the findings. And then once we define our futures, and once the pilots select the future that they want to achieve, we sort of go back to our current practices and we try to influence current measures, policies that will help us get to the desired state. I mentioned previously text mining, so very briefly, I will just say a few words about text mining. As most of you know, information nowadays pretty much resides online, and some claim that as much as 80% of all information is textual data, and some of it is structured, but a lot of it is not structured. So it's hard for any team, any department, any public authority to really make use of this data using just manual effort alone. And text mining can really support this effort by providing useful insights. In our case, we've built a prototype tool called SEMEX. Stands for Semantic Explorer. And here you can just see some of the screenshots from the SEMEX, from the output of the SEMEX. And basically, if you feed the system a piece of text, this can be a legislation, this can be a blog post, or you can even create a reading list composed of several texts. You feed this into the system, then you will get this kind of analysis. You will get polarity scores for the different paragraphs, and polarity score tells you whether it's mostly positive or negative. You will also get a list of topics, in other words, most frequently occurring terms in the text. You will also see a list of named entities that the system recognizes. So if it sees a person, it will recognize it as a person, or a commission, for example, in this instance, is recognized as an organization. So this is one of the outputs of the text mining tool that we developed in the project. We also, of course, have some graphical outputs, so some word trees, maps on this side you can see as well. So this is all part of the text mining solution. Very briefly about the system dynamics, as probably some of you are familiar with the subject, the idea is to explore how system behaves over time. And because systems, they tend to behave in a non-linear way, i.e. dynamically, you really need some feedback loops and time delays, stocks and flows in order to understand these dynamics. So that's one of the main reasons why we decided to use system dynamics in the project. And here's just an example of one of the models, a prototype model that we built for population and rural attractiveness. And this being a front end, allows users to go and explore the model in more detail by playing with the sliders, changing parameter values. You will then be able to see how, for example, various factors will influence KPIs, whether it's population dynamics or a more elusive concept of rural attractiveness that we'll discuss a little bit later. And of course, this being a mix of quantitative and qualitative methods, the model itself needs to be built by experts, but all these relationships, so for example, how rural attractiveness is affected by what factors, all these relationships, they are defined by local stakeholders, because these are the people who have the knowledge and are best really positioned to answer this kind of questions of how the region is behaving, what's influencing the region, which factors are more important. So on one hand, you have experts building the model. On the other hand, you have rural stakeholders who tell experts how the dynamics work, and then stakeholders, they also come in a bit later to validate the model by playing with the front end. And text mining and system dynamics are two innovative tools that we've used in the project. The rural attractiveness and the cluster maps are the other two innovative tools, but I will not touch on them in great detail. This will be explained to you by Ottokar and František. What I would like to end my presentation with is just by summing up some of our experience that we've encountered in the project so far. And while we try to understand and capture this concept of rural attractiveness, we realize that it can mean different things depending on the perspective that you will take. You can take a purely quantitative perspective and visualize in your head at least rural attractiveness as being something about the number of jobs or the number of various activities that tourists maybe can do once they visit the region. You can turn this around and apply more qualitative perspective. You can think about rural attractiveness as being more about creating favorable working conditions for people who already live there, or creating favorable working conditions who may want to relocate to rural areas. Maybe it's more about public goods such as clean air, waterways, mountains. You can also think about the different target audience, the people, organizations, companies that you want to attract, because depending on whether it's investors, entrepreneurs, farmers, young people, this is all gonna change. And so rural attractiveness, depending on your answer to the above, will vary. It can mean well-being for rural residents, or it can be more about targeting tourists and providing the richness or experience for people who want to visit the region. Maybe you want to preserve your cultural heritage, or you want to diversify your economy from farming and make it more digital, let's say. So it's not an easy thing to answer what is rural attractiveness, and the concept is elusive and certainly varies from region to region. And while it's difficult to find a one-size-fits-all definition, nevertheless, it's possible to identify some similarities within subgroups of regions. And the benefit of doing that is that you can then see similarities and differences between various groups of pilots, of locations across Europe and beyond. And this can help, in our case at least, to initiate this cross-border learning and the exchange of ideas and best practices. Because if group highlighted in green has similar needs and ambitions, and we know from our research and from past experience that this group or that group already tackle these needs with certain policy measures, then this is an opportunity to initiate cross-border learning between this group to this group, or this group to that group. So one of the benefits of doing this kind of clustering is that it helps to identify commonalities and differences, and as well as promote best practice exchange between the various regions. And now, without further ado, I would like to stop, and I imagine that before Ottokar takes over, we're going to have a quick question and answer. Is that right, Bente?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Pavel. Can you unshare your screen?
Yeah.
As well, and we turn on our cameras so that the audience can see us. And Pavel, we forgot to hear about you. So can you start by giving us a short introduction to yourself, who you are and what you do, very briefly?
Yes, sorry. I'm involved in POLIRURAL project, managing pilots and also managing some of the work packages there. But besides that, I work for a small SME, which is based in the UK, but I'm currently in Eastern Europe. So that's it.
That's a little bit more about you. Yes, thank you so much, Pavel. And as you can see, we have been joined by Sarah. So welcome in here, Sarah. So nice to see you. Can you give a very short introduction to yourself as well while you're here?
Yes. Yeah. I'm very happy I finally made it. Sorry for the delay to everybody. So yeah, I'm Sarah, and I work for Planfall, currently on POLIRURAL project, and before that, or shortly before that, I finished my PhD on sustainable agriculture and collaboration for that. Yeah.
We will. Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. And we can do the rest of the panel as well while we are at it. Uttakar, can you introduce yourself as well? You muted?
Sorry. I'm working at the University of West Bohemia on the Department of Geometrics as a researcher and lecturer, focused mainly on cartography.
Yes, thank you very much. And František, last but not least.
Yeah, okay, hello, once more time. Well, I've been dealing with GIS technologies in many forms for the last 15 years. And for the last 1.5 years, I'm responsible for development in the context of our organization, with the main focus on HSLR's map application framework. And you will hear about this in a few minutes.
Yes, thank you. And also about me, so I said initially that I'm representing Plan for All. I'm a member of the committee of Plan for All. I have been also, I would call myself a veteran now in organizing Inspire hackathons. And I'm generally an Earth observation expert, I will say, many different aspects of Earth observations data. So you know a little bit about all of us now, and we can return to the program. As far as I remember, this is now Uttakar, who will go into more about the data, and Sarah, we will meet you later when you are going to engage with the audience in terms of recruiting them to our different working groups, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay, thank you. So, Uttakar, the floor is yours. Let's dive into data now.
Okay, I hope you can see the presentation now. So something about data. It was mentioned that the raw attractiveness is multifactorial or multivariety component. And now you can see the reasons why we want to work with such complicated variable, yeah, because it was mentioned by Pavel before my speech. We want to find and to present some potential of European regions from the perspective of raw attractiveness, and we want to assess raw attractiveness and to compare particular regions. And finally, the main goal of raw attractiveness research, in our case, is to find some homogeneous groups, some spatial or geospatial patterns of regions, and to clusters which will be able to cooperate and network. So this is reasons for raw attractiveness, and I mentioned that this is some multi-factor variable, and we selected 6 main factors which was defined and described in deliverable of POLIRURAL project, and our colleagues set the 6 factors of raw attractiveness: natural issues, social and human issues, anthropic issues, economic, culture, and institution. For us, it was important to find weights of particular factors, because not all not all of them have the same importance. So we had 2 surveys, one through social media, and the second during the POLIRURAL meeting, which was held last January in Madrid. And you can see that the results were quite similar. Our stakeholders want to focus on natural factors, social, anthropic, and culture or institutional perspective of rural attractiveness are less important than other. This is the process of rural attractiveness mapping and assessment. We start from data searching and data mining. After that, there is a very important part called data harmonization, because we have to merge the data. We need to make some statistical analysis and statistical description. We have to add tags or some keywords to data. The text depends, in the current version, the text depends on rural attractiveness factors presented in the previous slide. We've done some data quality assessment, data normalization, and of course some data imputation to calculate missing values, because this operation is quite important from the view of clustering, because in case of clustering we need to work with the complete data. So after this data harmonization phase, there are 2 possibilities. The one is to create clusters. We use 2 types of clustering methods, hierarchical and non-hierarchical clustering methods. We calculate clusters in R software, and we also tested some combined methods. You will see the results during the next slides. This is a combination of hierarchical and non-hierarchical clustering. Or the second way after data harmonization, this is a data selection and calculating of rural attractiveness index, because rural attractiveness index combines values from specific input data. The number of input data from particular categories depends on weights, which were presented in the previous slide. And now we have data from clustering, we have rural attractiveness index, and the last step, or the mainly most important step, is to visualize this data in maps and in interactive application. There is also the feedback from our stakeholders, how to optimize the data, what to improve, and these things, which will be discussed in the end of this webinar. Okay, now we have 40 input data sets for European NUTS-3 regions. These data came from Eurostat, European Environmental Agency, World Bank, and other institutions. And you can see the selection of these data for calculating of rural attractiveness index. So for this index, we use only 35 input data sets to have some representative sample. Data harmonization, as I mentioned, there is many steps for data harmonization. You can see some pictures or some particular results, such as distance metrics, such as correlation, or such as searching for optimal number of clusters. Our maps are quite standardized. We use the traditional red, yellow, green color scheme for representing rural attractiveness index. So the best rural attractiveness index or the best rural attractiveness is green, and the worst values are in the red color. We use Lambert Equa-era projection, and we process these maps in QGIS. This is just a sample of our maps. It is the maps looking like Lego. So this is the traditional map. You can see the different values of rural attractiveness index. You can see that the best values are in the Northern Europe, and in Balkan Peninsula are the lowest values from the rural attractiveness. This is the result of clustering. We visualized 4 clusters in each map. The left one is from non-hierarchical clustering algorithm, and this is based on hierarchical clustering. You can see that there are some differences in searching clusters. Just some graphical methods as outputs from clustering, dendrogram on the one side and factor map on the second side. You can see that these clusters were constructed from pilot data of POLIRURAL projects. So this is not data from for the complete Europe, but only for the pilot, which was introduced by Pavel in his part of this webinar. And you can see that, for example, the pilot areas in Slovakia and Czech Republic are much more similar. There, for example, the area was in Ireland, which is quite independent from the perspective of rural attractiveness. And I think this is my my final slide. This is the promised combination of hierarchical and non-hierarchical clustering. The result combining the factor map as well as 3D dendrogram for our pilots, and you can see the results of clustering of pilot in the map. Yeah, as I mentioned, it was my last slide. So if you have any questions, I think now we have some time for these questions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Uttakar. And while you were speaking, Uttakar, I was asking if people were aware of the concept of rural attractiveness. And it's well, 66% are familiar with it, 25% no, and someone are not quite sure. So 8% is quite sure. So I think it would be interesting. I think that was an interesting discovery and important for you to know when you are progressing with the challenge. You need to make sure that everybody is understanding the concept of rural attractiveness. If you have questions in the audience, please do ask them. Use the opportunity now to clarify your questions. I have to admit, I didn't. Of course, the name itself is revealing what it's all about, but I wasn't sure exactly. I have to say, it seems to me very similar to the old game called SimCity, which was a simulator. I think I have a PhD in SimCity, so I think this is great. This is very wonderful to see that you are doing this so thoroughly with real data from the different communities, from the pilot areas. I understand. One question, Uttakar in particular, you know, Earth observation and making data interoperable is one of my babies. You have quite a challenge there in what you call harmonization. Are you requesting specific types of standards to help you, or how are you addressing this?
No, we are not requesting any specific standards for data. Or maybe we need to use some standards, some technical standards, yeah, like some open formats to be able to read it and to process it. For example, if you mean standards as control vocabularies, for example, this is the next steps of our research and our work to implement some linked open data, ontologies, open vocabularies, and these things to rural attractiveness.
Yes, I can imagine. And would you say that for those who are interested in this particular challenge within the challenge, is this something that you would welcome? Is that something you are prepared to handle at this stage?
Yes, I think these things, this will be introduced on the next part of our webinar. But as I mentioned, we are looking for some fitting nomenclatures, classification systems, and these things which will be able to describe or to classify the particular perspectives of rural attractiveness. Because now we are using the perspective based on 6 categories which were introduced in my presentation, but we would like to extend it. Yeah, because, for example, these categories are great for Europe, but we are also working with rural attractiveness data in Africa, and there are some other categories such as I don't know, conflicts or peace or freedom, yeah, and these things which are crucial from the perspective of rural attractiveness in these countries or regions.
Yeah, absolutely. So very interesting indeed. I think we can move on, and then there will be room for more discussions about this. I know I have even more questions, but I will hold back and give the floor to the more technical aspects now. I think it's you, František, who are going to introduce the application now.
Yes, it is. I guess now it's time to show the interactive map applications that are dealing with the processes that Otta was describing. So you will see the demonstration of 2 applications that are dealing with rural attractiveness, as Otta has presented. And they calculate attractiveness index in the first case and clusters in the second. The calculations take into account those factors and data sets and are presenting the results in a visual map form. And I have prepared the video with the demonstration to eliminate the risk of something going wrong during the webinar. So I'll probably ask you, Bente, now to play this video.
Let me introduce you map applications that are aimed at visualization of the attractivity of living in different European regions. Right now, the presented rural attractivity evaluation workflow are visualized by map applications. And as you will see, the user interface of those applications are very similar, and both of them are using the same set of data for the calculations. This being said, one of the desired outcomes of the COVID-19 Inspire Hackathon is a fusion of those two applications. But let's now briefly look at each one of them. The first application calculates the attractiveness of living in different European regions by combining 6 factors, where user can specify weight of each one of them. The factors are compounded of publicly available datasets whose values are at the level of NUTS3 regions. The application provides other tools that I will cover in a few minutes, but let's
Sorry, we have some issues with the video playing. Can you confirm that, František?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was this streaming problem, I guess.
So, let me see what we can do with that. You didn't hear anything?
In the beginning, yes, but then it.
Yeah, because because it was starting and stopping, and I was continue to start it. So let me see if let me see. Let me try if I can. I will stop this and then I will try to run it again. Can you send me the link again because I lost it, Pavel? No, sorry,
Yes, sure.
So yeah, we will provide a link to the video for you also, so you can enjoy this in peace and quiet afterwards. I assume, like this, and then okay. So there is the link. Yeah, and I will start again. And now you saw. Sorry about this. You saw the link that you can also see yourself, but then I will try to share it. Normally this should be okay. Let's see if it's something with the runner of the video. Let's see. Okay, I'll call this app, and then I will include the link. And we start again. If it's give me a hint in the chat if it's not working, and then we will you can do this summary on inside the webinar room, and people will be able to enjoy the video in the comfort of their home afterwards. I think the video is about 6-7 minutes long. Is that right, Pavel?
Yes, something like that. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Here we go again and see if this helps.
Let me introduce you map applications that are aimed at visualization of the attractivity of living in different European regions. Right now, the presented rural attractivity evaluation workflows are visualized by two map applications. As you will see, the user interface of those applications are very similar, and both of them are using the same set of data for the calculations. This being said, one of the desired outcomes of the COVID-19 Inspire hackathon is a fusion of those two applications. But let's now briefly look at each one of them. The first application calculates the attractiveness of living in different European regions by combining 6 factors, where user can specify weight of each one of them. The factors are compounded of publicly available datasets whose values are at the level of NUTS3 regions. The application provides other tools that I will cover in a few minutes, but let's now focus on specifying the factor weights. As I said, there are 6 factors, and by changing the value on the slider, you can change the influence of particular factor from 0 to 100%. So let's try, for example, to leave there just economic factors, and here you go. It takes always a while to recompute the map, but you can see the color changing as I change the weights of the factors. When I set up the factors or the weights of the factors, I can then hover with my mouse over the certain region, and you will see the scores of this region for each factor and a sum up for the weights set by the sliders. Now let's move to the second application. This one computes clusters of European NUTS3 regions where 40 statistical datasets are taken as inputs, and the data are again grouped into 6 basic factors. You can interactively set the importance of particle groups. That's the same as in the first application, but on top of that, if you expand the factor, you can select specific datasets which you want to include in the calculation. If you expand the dataset, you can even read the description of the dataset. Okay, now let's try to take this input and calculate the clusters. So based on this user input, the clusters are now calculated. Clusters with similar attractivity amongst Europe are calculated by the Words method with Manhattan distances. You can again move your mouse over the region to display some detail about it, and as you can see, there are no scores this time, as the clusters are displayed by the colors in the map, but at least you will see the country, the name of the region, and cluster ID. Well, those functions we have seen so far have been directly connected with rural attractivity. But the map applications are based on HSLayer's map application framework, which offers much more. There is of course something what we call layer manager that displays the content of the map and allows you to turn the layers on and off. If you click on this icon, on these settings, you can set the opacity of the layer. You can remove it from the map, and so on. There is a legend tool, which probably doesn't make much sense in this particular case, but the next tool is much more interesting. It allows you to add some more data to the map. As you can see, there are two tabs, Metadata Catalog and External Data. The Metadata Catalog, as the title says, offers you with some predefined datasets that are stored in the catalog on the server and are free to be used in the map. So let's try this. I'll select the first one, click on the Add button, and as you can see, it's WMS service. So we'll have to select one of the layers, for example this one, and click Add. And here you can see it, edit in the map. Of course, you can select more layers to be added, not just one, and it will be shown in the map. You can then switch it in the layer manager on and off. I'll now turn those layers off and move back to this tool. The second tab, External Data, allows you to add your own data. So you either can have your own service published on some server, or you can have data stored on your computer. In case you have your own service, I have one here. You can simply take the URL and enter it in this text box, click on the Connect button, and it will read the content of the service, the list of the layers. So I will go and select, for example, this one, and click Add to the map. And here we go, you can see it in the map. Again, in the layer manager, you can turn it on and off. You can change the opacity. If the service provides it, you can even display the metadata of the service. I have mentioned that you can even add your own data to the server and display it in the map. This option is available here with shapefile, but unfortunately it's not yet set up on this server, so it's not available yet, but it's probably one of the challenges that we will tackle through this hackathon.
Thank you. Thank you, video. František. Sorry about the bit of a mess there, but František, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I will just add that we know that there is a large room for improvements of those applications, and we are working on those applications through time and through this hackathon. And as I said, they are based on the HS Layers framework, which is a general tool for creating web mapping applications. If you are not familiar with it, I would like to encourage you to try. We have already done another webinar for challenge number 3 in this hackathon, where HS Layers are being used for publishing and sharing map data. So if you are interested in publishing or sharing some interesting data you have, please check the challenge number 3 as well. And that's probably enough from me.
Yes, that's a good point. Then we can post, I will find a link for the recording of that webinar for challenge number 3, so that people can consult with that. They already got the video of the recording of you without my little frantic tapping on the keyboard in the beginning. Apologies for that. But then I also right now ask you a question in the poll. It was very briefly, very quickly, it's fresh, so please answer that, because I think this is useful for you to know a little bit about the experiences from the audience here. So please answer that. And let me see. Ooh. I think now we have come to the next session. Ask questions, by the way. Please do ask questions. If not, you can engage in the discussion of ideas for potential improvements of the map application. I think, Sarah, this is you.
Yes, it would be me and Pavel.
Yes.
So I'm working here on my tablet. Maybe it would be good if someone else could share the screen, because here it's a little bit tricky.
Yes. Pavel, are you able to share your screen? He is.
Okay, so yes, we've now reached that stage of the webinar where we'd like to elicit some ideas from the audience. And to kick off the discussion, we would like you first to think about this question. Do you have experience with any of the following, which kind of builds on the question that Bente just already asked in the chat? And here are some possible options. Web-based visualizations, this can be GIS or other. Cluster maps, NUTS regions 2 or 3, or concepts such as rural development, rural attractiveness, rural resilience, rural renaissance. So take a moment to think about this. And if we have any volunteers in the audience that would like to tell us briefly about their experience.
Yes, Pavel, I think, yes, they can ask in the chat, but I can tell you already now, the intermediate response is that 18% they have used web-based GIS tools. So there are some with that background. And 9% have used also cluster maps. Mm-hmm. And we have 18% actually about to learn. So they are in the learning phase. And 54% no, and yes. So you see there's a little bit of this and that with respect to using these applications.
So maybe those who said they have experience with the GIS tools, can you tell us a bit more about your experience, and how, based on this experience, do you think we could improve our maps that you just saw in the video? Was there anything that immediately jumped into you and you thought, okay, I think this can be improved by adding this component or that component?
Yes, so give us a hint of what tools you have used in the chat. That's a very quick way of informing us. Otherwise, if you have a Chrome browser a fast internet, stable fast internet, a webcam and a headset, you can raise your hand. You see my hand here in the little window. You can raise your hand at the bottom of the row of icons there, and I will be able to invite you into the room, and you can talk as well and be a little bit more elaborate of what type of experience you have.
And maybe to add, because there are also 54% who haven't used any of these kind of tools, would be the questions, okay, for what kind of task would you like to use our map applications? What would you expect of them? Yeah, for which purpose would you use them, and maybe which functionalities would you expect? Which kind of questions would you ask to them? This is a little bit less technical, but it's more like pointed at the usefulness point, that we want to improve this to see if there's anything else which we can provide to make the map application more useful to actual users.
Okay, Gabriel said no. I don't know. Okay, so what I think this is, I think this came, this questions here comes a little bit fast to the audience. So maybe they need to think about this and then they can think about it, and we can bring it up again at the end of the webinar, because we have some more presentations, right? No, we don't.
Yeah, we just have just a few words to say on the evaluation criteria and then next steps. So yeah, we're sort of approaching the end of the presentation.
Yes, yes. So I think because this webinar is not so much as a workshop with all the audience. I think you will have to, the people in this audience can sign up for the challenge. And then you have, I believe you have Skype groups and other types of meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this now is presented with some valuable, the questions you are asking here is very valuable for you in order to plan for the further, progress of answering this challenge.
Yeah, so maybe the audience can, after reading this webinar, think about this question and the answer to it. And then based on the answer that you give, decide which groups you want to join, or if you already joined a group, then maybe think about what you would like to do in that group.
Yeah, I have one question here from Tula. Thank you, Tula. She's asking how to improve rural attractiveness. I guess that's one of the questions that would be interesting to address. Or have you already some thoughts on that?
Thanks, Tula. That's a difficult question to answer. And I see there's another question from you. What are the key factors to influence in order to improve to enhance rural attractiveness? Yeah, so I guess this probably depends on the region, right? I think in Finland, you want to focus on biodiversity. So probably what factors to influence there would probably differ slightly from Migal in Israel, from Galilee region in Israel managed by Migal, because there the focus, I believe, is more on diversification of the economy and attracting young people. Of course, there are some overlapping areas, but this is probably varies from region to region. And yeah, as we learned in our project in POLIRURAL, there's no straightforward answer, and the survey results that were gathered as part of work package 4 showed that our regions are very different, and if you remember some dendrograms that Otakar showed, I believe we have Ireland that is a bit of an outlier, but we have other pilots that have something in common. And then there was this Ireland Monaghan pilot, Gabriel. I think that's your pilot there, and that was different to the rest of the group.
Yeah, I guess that in the context of COVID-19, in living in a rural area, we had this discussion in Norway that where we have a lot of people going to their cottages, to their second home. They travel to the mountains or to the coastal line, depending on what part of the year, etc. And in the COVID-19, when you had this isolation and quarantine, etc., it was actually an issue. We were forbidding people to go into a rural area to visit their cabins because of the lack of medical help. Mm-hmm. So I guess that could be an interesting factor then in, what is the health services available in rural areas if you link it to the COVID-19.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bente, thanks.
Another thing, I just for clarification, this is my lack of knowledge, nuts 2.2/3, what is that?
I think that's the categorization of regions. Nuts 2 and nuts 3. I believe nuts 3 is more granular and smaller. Nuts 2 is a bigger region, maybe even a metropolitan area, if I'm not mistaken. But I think Otter, you worked with nuts, so maybe you can answer that directly to Bente.
Otakar, are you there?
Yes, I am here, but I didn't understand to Pavel's question or Pavel's comment.
What is nuts 2/3?
Aha, what is nuts 2/3? Yes, this is the statistical regions of different levels defined by Eurostat. There are four nut degrees. Nuts zeros are European countries, and they are subdivided to nuts 1, nuts 2, and nuts 3s. There are some limits regarding the population of these regions. For example, in Czech Republic, nuts 3 regions are equivalent to country regions.
I see. So it's the granulation type of classification.
Yeah. It is.
So we go. Okay. So there are different aspects of visualization and mapping, in fact, that are listed in this list from Pavel. I got a question here concerning a clarification of what you are asking for here. Just to be sure, do the participants have to select an issue to be involved within a challenge? To be involved. So do they have to select one of these issues that you have presented, or can they just join and explore more before they decide where to put their energy and resources?
I would say it's not that important. I think as we start discussing within groups and between groups, if you have some experience with rural affairs and in your region maybe a particular challenge or issue is very acute, you're more than welcome to share your story and experience, and then other regions will consider that because maybe it's also relevant, but it's not strictly necessary to determine a particular challenge such as climate change or population change or land abandonment to join this challenge. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Gabriel, I believe you raised a hand.
Yes, thank you for seeing that. Yeah. He unraised his hand again, I think. Or
Gabriel, if you are able to speak, please go ahead. If not, then we'll try to figure out something technically to allow you to ask a question or comment.
But the hand disappeared. Did you invite him, Pavel, or?
I clicked on it, but I don't know if I did something wrong. I saw a hand and I clicked on it. And
okay, Gabriel, can you then raise your hand again if you're not on your way into the room? Gabriel, I accepted Gabriel now. So let's see. Can you maybe unshare your screen again, Pavel, so it's easier to talk to faces rather than the screen. So basically what we have done here today is to introduce the challenge and given you some background information about what tools to use, some problems to be addressed. But as I understand, you are open to fine tune, to be more specific when you ask the questions of the challenge.
It's not so much the questions of the challenge, it's more like these questions were more pointed towards what kind of improvements do we need. We have some ideas for improvements, like these pop-up windows in the map with additional information on the pilot regions, but we are also open to other things that we could add to the maps and other possibilities to improve the maps. So this is the point where we are open.
Yeah,
and
show different aspects of
to see how people would like to use these applications and to see how we can facilitate these kind of uses they would like to have.
Yes.
Whether and how we can do that, yeah.
And there's an interesting question from Tula again. Do we imagine that policymakers will use the maps? And I guess this will in part depend on how easy this tool will be to use, because we know that GIS applications, I remember my first experience with QGIS was a nightmare. It was scary. And I think there's been a transition to creating these tools a bit more user-friendly in recent days. And it's also our goal to make it a bit user-friendly and allow non-technical people to quickly do mashups, add data sets, integrate data, and visualize it. And hopefully that one of the outcomes of this challenge will be a user-friendly map application that not only GIS experts, but also laymen can use and extract some insights from.
Yes, indeed. It should be, I mean, when I, as a non-rural or urban planner, were able to run mega cities on SimCity using the tools, I think the politicians would be able to do the same, but with real data. So it's a matter of I think the GUI, so the final user interface, will be of great importance. But definitely playing around with this data and seeing how it really is in the different regions, and as the Otakar explained, you can actually look at larger region and you can go into more higher granularities and see on your little community, ideally, right? In your commune or whatever, you can actually look at that. That's the plan. Question mark.
Yeah, we just have a couple of short slides to present, and I realize that we've been running the webinar for over an hour, so maybe I can quickly touch on those, and we can probably wrap up, I guess. Is that
yes.
Okay?
Yes. So Gabriel, he informed us that the internet connection, as I said, you need to be stable and good in order to enter the room. But I'm sure you are more than welcome to join the continuation of this discussion. So yes, conclude and inform us further then, Pavel.
Yeah. So as most of you probably know, we aren't the only challenge in this hackathon. There are, if my memory is correct, 13 in total. So we're competing in a friendly way against the 12 other challenges and teams. And the jury panel, when it convenes at the end of the hack, will look at a number of things. So I've listed them here, and that is to help us as mentors as well as you as participants to have some understanding of what we will be judged on when it comes to evaluation. So rural development focus, innovation potential, impact on the community, use of open data and various standards, sustainability, meaning that someone will use the results after the hack, business potential, teamwork, and final report. I think final report is probably more for the mentors, but I think the rest probably equally applies to both mentors and participants. And There are no financial prizes, but there will be a number of publications coming out of this hackathon, and all participants that contribute to this challenge will be featured in the publications. And here I just provided screenshots of some of the platforms that will be used to disseminate the results: the Golden Gateway, the Agris Online, the MDPI. And now, last but not least, very important next steps. Please, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and sign up to the challenge. I think a link was shared in the chat previously, but we can share it again, where we can sign up to one of the 3 groups that were mentioned. Group number 1, dealing mostly with web visualization. Group number 2, rural affairs, who will be sharing its expertise and, as well as testing the application. And group number 3, for which we haven't been able to find that many members yet, but hopefully we will. And the idea in this group is to suggest some innovative approaches, scientifically sound approaches for clustering, providing clustering methods to group 1. And myself and Sarah, we will be developing some testing scenarios and sharing with group 2 members. Otakar and František will provide further guidance on what needs to be done within the tech work stream. And once we have members in group 3, we will update them in due course. So I think that's all. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Pavel. It should be clear what to do. I saw that Hanka was sharing the video link in the chat already, and I also shared the link where you have a description to the challenge itself. Can you unshare your screen again also, Pavel? That would be great. Thank you. So you can, that was the link, the link to the challenge described on Plan for All. That's the link where they can find how to sign up, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So we can provide that again in the chat. And who is, so Sarah and Pavel, you will be, I mean, who are the mentors here? It's Otakar, is all four of you?
All 4, yes.
All 4 of you, yes. And have you divided the different groups between you? Yeah, you were 2 or 2 in one of each of them?
So myself and Sarah, we are more dealing with rural affairs, group number 2. Otakar and František, being more technical persons, are looking after group 1, and I imagine probably also group 3.
Yeah. By the way, I have one question I think we can address, because this is relevant for many potential participants from Africa or other places where the internet connectivity is an issue. I don't know if we can solve this, but I will ask the question. Thank you, Akanin, for asking this. What happened to communities or people who are interested in the app but do not have access to internet, etc.? So this is a web-based app, right, František?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. But is it possible to record results or something from the, the results from using the app? Is that something that could be provided to those who have less access to internet?
Maybe there would be. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Otte.
I think we are able to produce the static maps as well. Yeah, not only maps in the web application, but we can produce the static maps on demand. Yeah.
Yes, we know this from Geo, that we have some services that are, where you download Earth observation data for satellite data, for instance, and make it available on a local server. So avoiding the problem or trying to solve the problem with less connectivity. I see that Gabriel, thank you, Gabriel, for trying and get in. And another question, is it possible to use mobile-friendly apps?
Well, if you mean native mobile applications, then no, there is not mobile application yet. But of course, you can run those applications on your mobile phone in the browser. But to be honest, those applications are not yet adapted to mobile phones. We are working on that hard for the whole HS layers, not just these attractiveness applications. So that's my answer.
Yeah, so there is some efforts underway, but it seems like it sounds like you need to further develop this web-based, PC-based application first.
Yes.
Yeah. You have met all the mentors. You have been introduced to the challenge. You've gotten some tools that you can play with. You have some questions that you are kindly asked to answer and provide to the mentors. I think we can conclude. If not, you have, the mentors have anything else to add before we encourage people to look at the replay and sign up for the challenge? All good?
Just thanks for the participation and the patience. Very with us till the end.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will see you. We will provide you with more links in the channel of the challenge. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.